for anyone who's going to watch the recording, my name is Grace. I'm a senior here at Loris.
And I'm Brian, also a senior here at Loris.
And we started dating our freshman year, first semester, and we've had a long journey throughout our relationship where we've had a lot of transformations take place through the grace of God. And I think that's why Juliana really wanted us to come give this talk, because she's seen firsthand as a really close friend of both of ours and a best friend how the Lord has worked, not just through our lives as individuals, but also through our life as a couple who has, like I said, transformed and changed a lot through Christ, through his forgiveness, and through everything that he's been able to provide for us the past 3 years. So we're really grateful for that, and we feel called to share it. If it can help one person, it's worth sharing it in our eyes. And also, by no means are we experts or perfect when it comes to any of the topics that the book covers or anything that has to do with relationships. We're just here to share our experience in hopes that it could potentially help someone else or create a bigger conversation. Because as we've been reading about in the book, relationships in college can be pretty hard, especially nowadays. So that's our introduction.
Yeah.
And because we were supposed to speak or talk a little bit in the last book group, we decided to cover all the chapters. So we read chapters 5 through 9 entirely. So we're going to kind of talk about different things that we've experienced that the book has covered. So the first, what?
Also, another thing we wanted to say is that coming into college, neither of us really had a super strong faith background. One of our families was in and out of the church, and the other actually walked away from the church. So we, I guess, coming in really didn't have this solid background of what a really good marriage was like. We had really not had many people that set an example for us. So we, again, we're probably in positions like many people are coming into college, not having a set direction, a set goal to try to attain. Coming in, we were really lost, really didn't know what direction to go in this sense, talking about dating and what that can come to. But I just want to say this is why I think we are partially also giving the talk, is we can relate to some of the things that are also brought up within the reading. So
Yeah.
Start us off.
So the first chapter 5, Quit Rationalizing, that we read, this one was probably the most impactful and relatable to me. One of the specific reasons that the book gives is, in quotes, it says, "But we really love each other." And I think that's something that, in terms of what a dating couple would do versus what a married couple would do, that's something that we have really struggled with in our relationship, because we do genuinely really love each other and care about. But one thing that the book talks about is placing the love of virtue over the love of lustful emotions over the other one. And one of the quotes from the book that really stood out to us on the top of page 95 was, "The emotions of love must be placed under the virtue of love. When a couple is able to do this, they discover the richest form of intimacy." And I think that that's something that we have really experienced. Like Brian kind of talked about in the beginning, we didn't really have much of a faith background. We didn't really have much of a relationship with God. We either weren't aware of a lot of the church's teachings or just didn't really care or see value in some of them. So in our relationship, we started that way, and we came to realize that there is reasons behind waiting for marriage, and it is certainly very valuable. And through that experience, we found the richest form of intimacy that the book talks about. And Brian, do you kind of want to share how that has been fruitful in our relationship?
So yeah, I'd say earlier on we really didn't put much an emphasis of God. It was again, I think our relationship and then God was kind of under that. And like it was fine. Like we had an I'd say our relationship was all right. But again, since we've kind of flipped that around and put God at the top, had more of a Christ-centered relationship, it's like we've seen the fruits of our labor in that we actually have a more genuine relationship. We love each other even more than I thought was even possible. So some of the things that we have done that have helped and things that have resulted from that. We often read scripture. We try to do it once a day together towards the end of the day. And then with that, we end on a nightly prayer. What this has helped us to do is, again, have this genuine connection with each other and with God, to recollect on our blessings for the day and on how God has helped us and how we want God to continue to help us. Another aspect we do with this is we offer intentions. So we offer intentions for each other in hopes that we can better ourselves and the other person. We offer intentions for him to help our relationship and that we continue to grow in love of each other. And then we offer intentions for, I guess, close ones, loved ones, people that we both know or interact with that we want God to continue to work through. Through this, it has definitely strengthened us because it kind of is a good way to cap off our days. We'll be off doing whatever during the day, not really see each other or talk. But it's always that same thing. End of the day, recap. How did your day go? What are some good things that happened? What are some bad things that happened? And what are we hoping to grow and change going forward? And so helping to reflect on that in prayer, intentions, and scripture, I'd say has really been a big help.
And it's something that we are always working on. Like, I think we're human, so sometimes we fall short. Like, either we'll just fall asleep and forget about it, or sometimes we try to really do that. So, let's say, like, we don't see each other really that day, we'll just FaceTime each other and do our prayers. And another thing we specifically do with prayer, and I actually got this idea from a friend, but we'll say, like, we'll either read scripture or read a passage from like a book. For example, right now we have a book about saints and it has 365 saints in it. And with that, when they're talking about the saints, they connect that to the scripture as well. So scripture or like a Catholic book. And then we kind of reflect on what that's telling us. And then usually we'll say three Hail Marys. So he'll say one for me, I'll say one for him, and then we'll say one together. Um, and then, like Brian said, we'll also just pray for intentions for other people. And I think I've seen how that has really helped us center our relationship on Christ, bringing prayer into our relationship. Um, it's still hard in terms of chastity. It's not like, oh, because you're praying, you're not ever going to feel tempted or this and that. That's definitely not true. It's still hard, but when you bring prayer into the relationship, it's easier to have a Christ centered mind, which helps with the temptation that this book talks about a lot for men and for women. And I think it's made our lives a lot more joyful, and it's made us just focus on um, heaven more than all of the worldly things that all of us are probably experiencing right now. And I think that's the richest form of intimacy that this book is referring to. When you're placing your love of the other person, your love of virtue with that over a lot of the emotions that we have gone through. And I think it's interesting too, because I feel like this book sheds light on the fact that God placed like sexual desires and emotions like this on our hearts for a reason, but that reason is for like the sacredness of marriage. And that's something that we're striving to always get better at, and we've learned a lot about it through our own experiences.
Yeah.
So,
And I think, yeah, something that has helped us to get there, because I mean, it is a big commitment, setting aside, between anywhere between like 15 and 30 minutes a night to, make sure we do this. Something that like helps to get us there, or even is something we can do every day, is pray before meals. We all eat, we all have some sort of meal every day. And something that's helped us to do that is just simply praying before our meals, thanking God for his gifts, his blessings for the day, and for providing us with this nutrition so we can continue to spread the glory of God. And it's very easy, quick, simple prayer. Even if you're by yourself, if you're with friends from a class, if we're somehow with each other during lunch, um, that's something, again, very easy to do and helped kind of get us to the point where we made this prayer at the end of the day part of our routine. So
and a lot of the advice that we've both gotten from priests too about our relationship is focusing on prayer, and that like asking for God's help, asking for God's forgiveness, and asking for the intercession of saints has helped us to become more obedient and more trusting of the Lord, especially when it comes to like waiting for marriage, because that can be something that's very hard to do, especially when you already have crossed those boundaries. It's hard to kind of go back, and those things have helped a lot.
with that, do you want to move on to further chapters?
Yeah, so chapter 6, I think my favorite part of that was when they listed in the chapter they listed out like some desires that maybe a woman would have for like her future husband one day. And one of the ones that stood out to me the most was he himself should have strong morals so that I don't have to convince him of mine. And I think that that was honestly like we both went through ups and downs within that. Like, I specifically remember one time coming to Juliana and saying, like, I just want him to like see things the way that I see things. And she told me to just wait and pray. And once I did that, started being patient and was praying about it, I think you started to see everything that I was starting to see, and we were both on the same page. And I think it's been so beautiful having the same morals and values. Like, I was on the chaplain team for Antioch, Brian was Antioch, and we went on Seek together and things like that. And it's so much easier when you and the person you're with see eye to eye on faith in God and the church's teachings, because I don't have to convince him of anything and he doesn't have to convince me of anything. Instead, we're just leading each other to heaven and making the efforts and asking God to help us with that has just been such a beautiful thing. And in doing that, helpful tips that I feel like this book talks about and that priests have told us is like setting boundaries and knowing what your temptations are. Like maybe that could be with like chastity, or maybe that's with gossip, or maybe that's with just putting other things in your life. It could be school, friendships, anything above God. And if we can both set our boundaries together and be accountability buddies together because we both believe in this, it's so much easier to do all those things. And like I said, it's still a work in progress. We're not perfect by any means. We've definitely fallen, and we're definitely, I like the term stumbling towards holiness. Um, so we're definitely both working at doing that. So yeah, that was my main takeaway from chapter 6.
Yeah, and I think so. Part of it is basically not knowing that you don't like have to convince him. And I think that was the big thing she talked about with growing in that. And for me, it was just time and lived experiences. Like I would say that I didn't come into college with super strong morals in any direction or way. And it's not necessarily that I was convinced by someone, but the fact that I had time to grow and learn and had time to go through life and live so many different experiences with so many different people and interact with, I mean, just so many different groups of people who have different opinions. And being able to form those morals and virtues from that. Um, I think of it as I was, again, stumbling, and maybe I was, um, maybe partially blinded in my search and journey for true moral and virtue. And again, it just took time and God working through that. It's not something that happens at a moment's notice. And it wasn't a person necessarily that kind of convinced me. It is, again, time and God's grace through all his miracles that he works. But yeah, I got to a point where I now have morals and values, and they do align with hers. They align with the Catholic Church. And I mean, it's really helped us now that we have that strong basis in order to grow in other directions of our life. So.
Mm-hmm. And then the next chapters that we read were the hang it up on hookups and then the friends with benefits chapter. And I think that prior to dating, we both had our own experiences with this topic in this phase of our life that the chapter talks about. And I think one of the main things that stood out to us that we believe to be true is the psychological effects of hooking up and friends with benefits. So I don't know, Ryan, if you want to talk about the oxytocin.
Yeah. So with hookups and friends with benefits, a commonality, being someone who's in science, I like evidence to back up certain things. And something I know the book talks about is oxytocin, so known as the human superglue. And I think both, I mean, 6 and 7 with hookups and friends with benefits, that's a big thing that we don't put a lot of emphasis on. So these psychological effects, it's not something that's just mental, but it is also like physically different effects. So oxytocin, known as the human superglue, what it ultimately leads to, like the book says, is a poor lack in judgment. These emotions and other thoughts and feelings can cloud your true feelings and judgments of someone, and can honestly cloud your virtues and morals at that point. That's just the power of oxytocin. It is like, again, there are so many different factors that go into this, but oxytocin is one that does have a very, very strong effect that isn't honestly talked about much. That's just one of the many effects that these can have on you.
Yeah, and it's just crazy, like going from someone who just kind of fell into that of like, why does waiting for marriage really matter? And now to someone that believes in that, I think it's crazy to see that like God's image and design for like our bodies, our lives, and marriage and science match.
Mm.
They're not different, they match and align with each other. So I think that's just very interesting that because of these hormones in our body that are released when we are intimate with another person, it bonds us and it connects us to them. And if that's someone that we're not married to, that will ultimately lead us to more destitute within our own lives. And it's the same hormone that's released like when you're giving birth and when you connect with your child. So it's a bondage that's meant to last eternally. And God created that for us. And a lot of us um, aren't taught that or don't even know that. I didn't even really know that until coming into college. So I'm very grateful that I learned that. And then the last chapter was chapter 9. And I think the very ending of chapter 9 stood out to us the most. And it was just kind of a quote at the end that we both thought was kind of funny, but very, very true. It says, how often do you hear of a woman standing at the altar on her wedding day wishing she would have kissed a few more guys? Or like if you're in a relationship, like wishing that we would have done more physical acts. It's like you really don't ever hear about that. And I think it's just a good way to summarize of like why this is so important. I don't think you'll regret waiting for marriage, but you might regret not waiting for marriage. And I think that's something that we've had to learn a lot about and prioritize. And yeah, if anyone has any questions or wants to talk to us more, we're always willing to discuss this subject because, like I said, we've experienced it. We're not trying to stand on a high horse saying we figured it all out. We're honestly figuring it all out with you guys, and we just want to create a more open conversation. So, yeah, I think that's all we have from the chapters.
Well, thank you, Gracie and Brian, for sharing. It's like honestly so beautiful hearing you guys, and obviously like I've kind of been there as like your guys' friends, just like throughout your relationship, all those like highs and the lows and stuff. So it's kind of beautiful seeing how much you guys have grown together and just like I don't know, it's very inspiring. So thank you for just sharing your story and letting me record it too, so I can share it to the other girls who can't be here today. Um, but I want to say there's like a couple things I wanted to mention before this thing times out. But because sadly Zoom is very limited with time. But you guys mentioned how like prayer has been like the core of your guys' relationship and bettering your relationship into not getting into certain temptations or getting into certain bad habits in a way. Besides like prayer, what is something that's also been really helpful for you? So is it like more keeping a schedule of things or like doing your own things or having your own like I guess schedules in a way, but then at the end of the day you guys come back to each other with prayer? Like what's been besides prayer something else?
Yeah, I think we've gotten to the point where we each have our other commitments, not only classes, but works, internships, clubs, like everything under the sun. And it's not that that takes precedent over our relationship, or not that a relationship should take precedent over that, but it's just finding that good balance and what works. Obviously, given scheduling, we don't have the time during the day to do stuff, which is why it's good at night to kind of cap off our days together in prayer. But it's also finding the little gaps we have in the schedule to go on a walk together or grab lunch together. Yeah.
Gotcha. Very cool. And I hope this is like, I don't know, I hope people really listen to your guys' story because like it is very relatable. Like there's so many relationships in college that start off not with centering God around their lives and they don't even realize how important it is until they're actually in a relationship and it's like either there's something feels like there's something missing or there's something not going right. Or it's like, okay, like maybe you can explain that feeling of like when you realize there was something missing within your life. I don't know like if there was a certain like moment or if there was like a certain just time period of like you were dealing with certain things. I don't know if you'd like to share those things, but feel open to if you want.
Yeah, I think when there was something, I think like everyone inherently, when you don't have God in your life or you don't know that God's working in your life, I think everyone deep down feels like a missing because ultimately, like it says in the book, that love is what's gonna satisfy us and fulfill us. And when that love is not centered around God, or when we don't even realize God's love for us, we're just gonna be kind of in that waiting period of like loss and like confusion and not really knowing how you fit in or where you fit in. Or I think that leads you to like desiring other people to fulfill your love, your need for love. And when you have God, you realize that He is fulfilling that need that you have for love, whether you're in a relationship or not. And I think both of us definitely experienced that.
Yeah.
And college was kind of the time of figuring out ourselves. And like we said, thankfully, God was there for us in this period and like introduced us to people who kind of knew more and had a closer relationship with God that we did. Bye, Kate.
Thanks, Kate, for coming.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing I just could add to that is I mean, I don't know, at least I got to a point where it's like, what's next? Cause it's like, cool, we're in college. We're gonna move on from college. Maybe we'll get married. Then what's after that? And I mean, I personally, and I think we just kind of got to a point where it's like life is limited and there's something after life, and we want to make the most of now so we can make the most of the afterlife and getting to heaven. And it wasn't like a hit the panic button. We gotta be holy now. It was kind of like just I guess a realization that we should be recognizing God in our lives and making clear efforts here while we're on earth to get to heaven.
Thanks, guys. Um, Wow, it's like I just can't get over how crazy it's just like hearing you guys talk. So it's like, I don't know, just so much growth and so much like, I don't know, love for you, one of you, or the love I have for both of you and the love you guys have for each other has just grown so much because of like the things you've gone through. And even Brian, you mentioned like it kind of went through experience of like uh experiencing different things throughout your relationship to even to learn from those. And tying faith in that and not being like the panic button, because I think a lot of people like it's not really a panic button for them. It's more of like a okay, like I guess maybe I should include this in my life. It maybe is kind of important, and it kind of gradually over time goes. Not like this. Oh my gosh, like I saw a vision of something, and now I got to be holy, like kind of thing. And I think that not even just relationships that happens in like just our own lives in general, like personally, of like the moment where like maybe this is kind of important. Let me look into it a little bit more, or like throughout time with whether that's people in our life that affect us greatly, whether that's friends or like random people you like just meet, or even family like experiences, you learn from those and grow from those. So I don't know, I liked what you said, Brian. And yeah, I guess that's honestly what I wanted to do today is like have you guys share your story, and hopefully when a couple of girls see this that they're very impacted, whether they're we have a whole range of obviously girls that are usually here, so freshmen, sophomores and juniors and seniors, so people that are leaving or like our age, and the people that are also just starting college. And so I want them to be able to know that they're not alone in the struggle of all this. But yeah, I think this is about to end. So thank you guys for being here, and I appreciate you both greatly.
Yeah.
If you have any questions for my group, please feel free to share, like send in, and then I can send it to them too. Or questions to ask themselves in a way.
Okay.
Fantastic.
So perfect. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you. I'm gonna probably end it now.
Perfect.
All
Thanks.
right. Of
Thanks for
course.
having us.
Thanks.
All right.